Welcome to Mind Architect Lab, Deep Dive. What you are about to hear is a different kind of podcast. Each episode is built on a comprehensive research report, meticulously compiled by our human team. We dive deep into topics to bring you insights you won't find anywhere else. To bring this dense research to life, we use advanced AI-powered voices. This allows us to create in-depth, long-form content for you every week. While this technology is incredible, it isn't always perfect. You may hear an occasional quirk or a slight imperfection in the audio. We believe this is a small trade-off for the quality of the information we can share. And because we value transparency, the complete, detailed research brief this conversation is based on is available to every listener. You'll find the link in the description. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's begin the deep dive.
Mind Architect Lab Deep Dive.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we turn the most complex stacks of sources into clear, actionable blueprints for your life. Today, we are tackling something huge, really getting into the architecture of the self, guided by Carl Gustav Jung and his analytical psychology.
It's a big one, a dive into, the architecture of wholeness. Our mission, really, is to take Jung's map of the psyche, which, let's be honest, can seem pretty dense, maybe mystical or academic.
Definitely intimidating sometimes.
Right, and distill it. Get to the core concepts, turn them into practical insights for you if you're serious about deep personal development, about self-realization.
So you walk away understanding not just the words, but how your own inner system actually works.
Exactly, your inner operating system.
Okay, so where do we even start? You can't really talk Jung without talking about Freud first, can you? The big split.
No, you really can't. It's the foundation. For a long time, there were giants together, partners launching modern psychology, but they broke apart. Fundamentally different views on human pain, human purpose.
A necessary break, you think?
Oh, absolutely necessary. Their visions were just heading in opposite directions. Freud's model, it was fundamentally causal reductive. Meaning if you were suffering, neurotic, whatever, the job was to look back, reduce the symptom to its origin, usually some past trauma, some conflict, maybe repressed childhood sexuality.
Like a deep dive history lesson into your own wounds.
Pretty much. A powerful model, sure, but keeps you focused on the past, right? On finding what's broken.
Yeah, it pins you to the why it happened.
Exactly. Jung, though, he flipped it. His framework was perspective and teleological.
Teleological, that's the key word, isn't it? Purpose.
Purpose, exactly. Jung saw the psyche not as this closed system haunted by history, but as dynamic, goal-seeking, always striving towards a future goal.
Which is?
Integration. Wholeness.
Okay, so if you're neurotic, it's not just a wound from the past.
No, it's a blocked road, maybe, pointing towards the growth you need to undertake next. The symptom actually holds the promise of its cure, in a way.
Wow, that changes everything for personal development, doesn't it? It shifts the question from why me to
what is this trying to move me toward? Yeah, it's a totally different orientation.
And that future goal, the big organizing principle for the whole system, that's individuation.
That's the core, individuation. It's this lifelong process, often really challenging, let's be clear.
A lot easy.
Definitely not easy. It's the process of becoming the unique, integrated, whole person you were kind of meant to be. It's not about being perfect or fitting in. It's about realizing your totality.
Which means integrating everything, the good and the bad.
Light and dark, yeah. Conscious and unconscious. It's the ultimate psychological quest, you could say.
Okay. Now, to power this quest, Jung needed a different kind of fuel source than Freud, right? Freud was all about libido as sexual energy.
Right, and Jung found that way too narrow. I mean, how do you explain writing a symphony or seeking enlightenment with just sexual energy? It didn't track for him.
So he expanded it.
Totally. He redefined libido as this generalized psychic energy. Think of it like a universal life force, an élan vital, maybe. It fuels all psychological stuff. Instincts, culture, spirituality, thinking, feeling, everything.
And this energy isn't fixed.
No, that's the key. It's quantifiable, adaptable.
Why is that so crucial for someone trying to grow?
Because it means energy can be transformed, channeled, Energy from basic instincts, okay, be sublimated, shifted into cultural things, creativity, or even the hard work of self-reflection.
So the energy isn't stuck where it started. It can flow towards that future goal, towards wholeness.
Precisely. It gives you something to work with.
That reframing of energy is foundational. But the really revolutionary part, the bit that kind of blew the doors off the old models, that's the collective unconscious.
Ah, yes. This is where things get really deep. We move beyond just personal biography here, into myth, into shared human heritage.
So we have the personal unconscious. Yeah, that's my stuff, right? Things I forgot or pushed down.
Your specific repressed material, exactly. But beneath that, deeper, is the collective unconscious. It's inborn, inherited, universal. Its contents were never in your individual conscious mind.
No, I didn't learn it. I inherited it. Like a shared software template.
That's a great way to put it. A common psychic substrate connecting everyone, regardless of culture, time, place. And it's structured by these universal patterns, archetypes.
Like psychological organs, inherited emotional wiring.
Yeah, or like psychic instincts. They're these structures that just light up. They generate images, feelings when we hit universal human experiences. Birth, death, power, betrayal, motherhood. The big stuff.
What made him so sure this existed? Was there clinical evidence?
He was fascinated because he kept seeing the same complex mythological themes pop up spontaneously in dreams, in fantasies of his patients.
Patients who didn't know these myths.
Exactly. People with zero conscious knowledge of, say, ancient Egyptian mythology or obscure alchemy texts. But the imagery was right there. Identical patterns. He saw it in the psych wards. He saw it in his travels studying different cultures. He saw it in ancient texts.
So he figured it had to come from somewhere deeper, shared.
A shared, inherited psychic foundation, this reservoir of primordial images, just waiting for life experience to activate them. It's pretty radical.
Okay, we've got the purpose individuation, the fuel psychic energy. Now we need the map itself. Let's get into part one, defining the territories, starting with the part we think we know best, the ego.
Right, the ego. Crucial, but also kind of deceptively small in the grand scheme of things. It's the center of your conscious awareness.
The I.
The I. It organizes your thoughts, your memories, feelings, sensations, gives you that sense of continuity, identity. It's the part saying, I am me, making conscious choices. It's the WHO you consciously believe yourself to be.
It's like the driver in the driver's seat.
It's in the seat, yes. But it's not the whole car. And that's the critical point Jung stressed over and over. The ego is not the master. It's not the whole personality.
It's just a small piece.
A fraction. And mistaking the ego for the whole self, Jung called that ego inflation. That's actually the biggest block to individuation. The ego needs to serve something larger, the self.
Okay, so beneath the ego's conscious awareness, we hit the personal unconscious. My unique layer.
Exactly. This is your personal reservoir. All the stuff that got repressed, forgotten, or just never quite made it into conscious awareness. Subliminal perceptions, that phone number you forgot, moral conflicts you kind of dodged.
Memories too painful, maybe.
Definitely those two. It's all stuff acquired through your specific life history. Accessible, technically, but maybe painful to dig up. And this is where our conflicts live, which we'll get to.
And then below that, the vast ocean. The collective unconscious again. We need to keep this one in mind because it connects our personal stuff to the bigger human story.
It really does. If the personal unconscious is like the basement of your house, the collective unconscious is the earth underneath, shared by everyone, connected globally. It's inborn, universal, structured entirely by those innate archetypes.
Which are like forms without content, channels waiting for water.
That's a good analogy. Or think of it like a camera lens structure. We all inherit the same basic lens structure, the archetype.
But the picture changes?
The content changes based on culture, time, personal experience. So you get a Greek myth, a Star Wars movie, a figure in your dream, but the underlying structure, the hero, the great mother, the trickster, the shadow, that's universal.
And when something big happens in life,
the relevant archetype gets activated. It shapes the experience, gives it this huge emotional charge, connects your personal event to this timeless pattern.
Okay, let's shift to the dynamics of psychic energy. Knowing the map is one thing, knowing how it all moves is another. It starts with the principle of opposites, you said.
Yeah, the psyche is fundamentally, well, dialectical. It's structured by conflict, by tension, light, dark, conscious, unconscious, thinking, feeling, introversion, extroversion. These aren't problems to be solved, necessarily.
They're the engine.
They're the source of psychic energy, like the voltage difference in a battery. If you perfectly balanced everything, made it all harmonious, Psychic life would just stop. No energy, no movement.
So for personal growth, I shouldn't try to eliminate the tension between, say, what I want and what I think I should do.
You shouldn't eliminate it, no. You need to work with the energy that tension generates. Learn to hold it, because the psyche regulates itself through the law of compensation. This is maybe one of the most practical things Jung identified.
Compensation. The unconscious tries to balance things out.
Automatically. If your conscious attitude gets too one-sided, too extreme in one direction, the unconscious will pipe up with the opposite. It seeks balance.
Can you give a really concrete example, something someone might actually recognize?
Okay, sure. Let's say a high-powered executive. Consciously, they're all about rationality, efficiency, maybe ruthless logic, very impersonal. That's a super one-sided conscious attitude, right? So the law of compensation kicks in, the unconscious tries to supply what's missing, how. Maybe suddenly they develop a crippling anxiety disorder that defies all logic. Or OCD tics.
Things that force irrationality onto them.
Exactly. Or maybe they have vivid dreams where they're like a helpless child.
Yeah.
Or they find themselves engaging in really sentimental, emotional stuff that feels totally alien to their conscious persona.
The unconscious is basically yelling, hey, you need feeling, you need vulnerability, and since you won't live it consciously.
I'm going to shove it in your face, symbolically or pathologically. And crucially, Jung saw this compensation as teleological. Purposeful.
Not just fixing a tilt, but pushing towards something.
Yes, it's not just a thermostat. It's trying to push the personality towards growth, towards integration. It supplies the missing piece to guide you towards realizing your total personality, towards the self.
Okay. Before we get into personality types, let's talk about those things living in the personal unconscious. Autonomous complexes. We use that term casually, having a complex, but Jung meant something much more potent.
Oh, absolutely. A complex isn't just a feeling. It's this emotionally charged cluster. Ideas, memories, images, all bundled together around a core theme, often starting from some kind of psychic shock or trauma.
Like little magnets in the psyche.
Yeah.
Drawing related stuff to them.
That's a good image. Feeling-toned nodes of psychic life. So a mother complex isn't just about your mom. It's this whole knot of feelings, memories, expectations around mother.
But the really critical part is their autonomy.
That's the kicker. They've kind of split off from the ego's control. They have their own energy charge and, crucially, their own intentionality almost.
They operate independently.
Like little personalities within the personality, animated foreign bodies. That's why Jung said that famous thing. Everyone knows people have complexes, but it's way more important to realize that complexes can have us.
That's that feeling of being hijacked.
Right.
When you just erupt or freeze up and you know it's irrational, but you can't stop it.
Exactly. The complex takes the wheel. It's that moment of diminished responsibility. The complex temporarily grabs ego authority. And we often project them outwards, right? Leading to these huge, out of proportion reactions to things.
So recognizing that autonomy is step one for personal development.
Absolutely. But here's the other side. You said they're not just problems, they're also a bridge.
Yeah. How does that work? If they're disruptive, how are they helpful?
Because they are focal points of psychic life. Yes, they block energy flow, cause trouble, but they also contain immense psychic energy. They're stimuli for growth. When you actually confront a complex, really wrestle with it.
Instead of just being run by it.
Right, you transform it. It stops being just pathology and becomes a vital bridge to the collective unconscious, because every personal complex, no matter how tied to your own story, it's structured around a universal archetype.
So my specific abandonment complex
Connects to the universal orphan archetype. Or a power complex connects to the king or tyrant archetype. Working through your personal stuff forces you into dialogue with that deep universal core. You start to integrate the energy that was locked up in the archetype through the complex.
My personal pain becomes the doorway to the universal.
That's it. The personal story meets the collective myth.
Okay, let's transition now into part 2. Understanding your personality. This is Jung's framework for why we tick the way we do, why we prefer certain ways of engaging with the world, the typology, starting with the 2 basic attitudes.
Yes, introversion and extroversion. And we have to ditch the pop psychology version, right? It's not just about being shy versus outgoing.
It's more fundamental, about energy flow.
Exactly. Where does your psychic energy naturally flow? Extroversion, the interest flows outward. Energy goes towards the objective world, people, things, external facts, social norms. The extrovert is mainly oriented by that external data, seeks stimulation out there.
And introversion.
The flow is inward. Energy is directed towards the subjective factor, the inner world of thoughts, feelings, interpretations, fantasies. The introvert gets energy from and orients primarily by their inner landscape, their subjective take on things.
So it's about what gets priority.
Mm-hmm.
The outside world's data, or your inner interpretation. Okay, once the energy is flowing, how do we process information? The 4 functions.
Right. These are like the tools we use to navigate reality. And they come in 2 pairs of opposites. First, the perceiving or irrational functions. They just gather information. They don't judge it yet. That's sensation and intuition.
That's the 5 senses, right? Concrete reality.
Yeah. Sensation says it exists, it's here, it's tangible, focuses on facts, the present moment, the actual details, what is.
And intuition.
Intuition is different. It's more unconscious perception. It sees the possibilities, the patterns, where things might be going. The intuitive is always asking, what could be? What are the implications? Sees the forest, not just the trees. Sees around corners, maybe.
Okay, so those 2 perceive. Then we have the judging or rational functions. They evaluate, make decisions. That's thinking and feeling.
Exactly. Thinking is logical, analytical. It's impersonal. It operates on the principle of true or false. It asks, what is this? Does it make logical sense?
And feeling, and this is where people get tripped up, it's not just emotion, right?
Not raw emotion, no. In the Jungian sense, feeling is a rational function for making value judgments. It assesses worth. It asks, is this good or bad? Agreeable or disagreeable? What's its value to me or to the situation?
Okay, this is crucial for self-understanding. Feeling as a decision tool. Let's try a scenario to make that really clear. Thinking versus feeling decision-making.
Good idea. Imagine you're a CEO. You unfortunately have to lay off 15% of your workforce to keep the company afloat.
Okay, tough situation.
Yeah.
How does a dominant thinking type approach this?
The thinking type uses logic, impersonal principles, their criteria, efficiency, strategic roles, maybe profit generated versus cost. They'll analyze the data. They might feel bad about it personally, but the decision itself is based on objective, logical analysis, detached from the human impact as the primary driver.
And the dominant feeling type CEO?
The feeling type uses value judgment as their primary tool. Their criteria will center on things like human impact, morale, loyalty, the effect on the team's cohesion, the relational worth of individuals to the company culture.
So they might keep someone less profitable, but who holds the team together?
Exactly. They might weigh the potential damage to the company's emotional ecosystem higher than pure profit metrics. Both rational decisions in Jung's view, just based on totally different criteria. Impersonal logic versus subjective relational value.
Okay. And it's the combination of your main attitude, introvert, extrovert, and your dominant function that creates your strength, but also automatically creates your weakness. Which brings us to the inferior function and the shadow.
Right. Your most developed function, your conscious strength, the one you rely on, the dominant function, inevitably means its direct opposite, the inferior function, gets pushed down. It stays undeveloped, unconscious, kind of archaic, even primitive sometimes.
And that's the danger zone, the back door for the shadow?
It's the primary gateway, yeah, the unlocked door where the shadow tends to erupt. And the shadow is, well, it's the other within. All the parts of you that you've repressed, disowned, the unlived bits of your personality.
The stuff that doesn't fit your conscious image of yourself.
Exactly. Traits that are incompatible with your ego ideal, your persona, maybe your morals.
But we need to stress, the shadow isn't just the bad stuff, right?
Actually, no. That's a huge misunderstanding. The shadow also contains what Jungians call shadow gold, really valuable, undeveloped potentials. Maybe assertiveness you were told wasn't nice, or raw creativity, instinctual vitality, emotional depth that didn't fit the family or social mold.
So shadow work isn't just about owning your flaws. It's about reclaiming that lost gold too.
Absolutely. It's integration, not just apology. And the structure of your conscious personality, your dominant function, actually dictates the specific nature of your shadow eruption via that inferior function.
Let's get specific. Give us a couple of examples people might see in themselves or others under stress. Start with a dominant thinker, maybe an engineer, academic type.
Okay. A high-functioning, introverted thinking type. Logic is king. Their inferior function is extroverted feeling. So when they're under stress, what happens? Their logical fortress crumbles.
And the feeling comes out messy.
Messy is an understatement. The shadow erupts as sudden, volatile, often wildly inappropriate emotional outbursts, usually directed outwards. It can look like rigid dogmatism, bizarre sentimentality, or getting incredibly irrationally attached to some person or cause in a way that completely undermines their usual logical self. Their Achilles heel is often clumsy, poorly expressed relational feeling.
Okay, what about the opposite? Someone really practical, maybe sociable, a dominant extroverted sensation type, focused on the concrete here and now.
Right. Their inferior function is introverted intuition. So under pressure, their usual grounded connection to reality gets shaky.
How does that look?
Their shadow erupts through that weak intuition. Suddenly they're hit with dark, paranoid hunches about hidden motives, vague, terrifying anxieties about the future. Or they might fall hook, line, and sinker for outlandish conspiracy theories.
Which is totally out of character for their usual practical self.
Completely. But that unlived inferior intuition forces these dark, symbolic, often negative patterns into their awareness, causing chaos and fear.
So the big takeaway here is developing your inferior function, the thing you're naturally worst at and tend to avoid. That's the real work. Challenging, but direct.
It's the most direct route to integrating the shadow and rounding out the personality. It forces you to build the bridge. It transforms that primitive, eruptive shadow force into something more functional, more conscious, like deliberately working your weakest muscle group. It hurts, but it builds balance.
Okay, moving on within the psyche to the personal cast of characters. These archetypes we deal with every day. First up, the persona. The mask.
The persona comes from the Latin word for an actor's mask. It's the archetype of social adaptation. Your professional role, the way you present yourself in public, the expected behaviors you adopt to fit in and function smoothly in the world.
It's necessary, right? A kind of interface.
Absolutely necessary. A protective shell, an interface. But the danger.
Getting stuck in it.
Identification, mistaking the mask for your actual face. If you completely identify with your job title, your social role, perfect mom, tough guy, intellectual, you lose touch with the huge complexity underneath.
SK.
Inner emptiness, feeling like a fraud, a deep sense of alienation, and you're incredibly vulnerable to collapse if that external role gets threatened or taken away. Burnout is often linked to this.
So the start of individuation is peeling back the persona.
It's differentiating, recognizing, okay, I have this persona, I use it, but it's not me. That's a huge first step.
Okay, next pair. The Anima and Animus. The inner other sex.
Fascinating archetypes. The Anima is the unconscious feminine image within a man. The Animus is the unconscious masculine image within a woman. They are archetypal, so partly inherited universal structures.
But shaped by life.
Heavily shaped by personal experience, especially with the parent of the opposite sex and other significant relationships. Their quality, their complexity is very personal.
And when they're unconscious, their main job is projection.
Compulsive projection, absolutely. The classic example is falling in love. That intense can't live without you feeling is often the projection of your own anima or animus, your soul image, onto someone else.
You see your own inner magic or wisdom or strength in them.
You attribute it all to them, which is why relationships often hit that wall, right? Because the real person inevitably fails to perfectly embody their projected archetype 24/7.
So the developmental task isn't to find the perfect partner to carry the projection.
No, it's to withdraw the projection. To realize that the qualities you projected, the wisdom, the creativity, the strength, the nurturing, were actually aspects of your own inner world all along.
And when you integrate them, take them back.
They stop being compulsively projected and start functioning internally as an inner guide, a psychopomp, Jung called it. They become the bridge leading the ego deeper into the unconscious and to dialogue with the self.
Which brings us to the center of it all. All these figures, ego, shadow, persona, anima, animus, they orbit the self.
The self is the big one, the center of the total psyche, conscious and unconscious combined. It's the archetype of order, totality, meaning. It's both the destination of the journey and the organizing principle driving it.
The famous analogy is ego is to self as earth is to sun.
Perfect metaphor. The self is vast, encompassing the source of life and light. The ego orbits it, reflects its light, but can never fully grasp or contain it. It's transconscious.
How does it show up?
It manifests spontaneously, especially in times of chaos or transition, through symbols of unity and wholeness. The most common one Jung observed is the mandala.
The circular image with a center.
Exactly. The self is always striving to assert its inherent order, its drive towards wholeness, often depicted in these centering, balancing images.
Okay, we've mapped the inner territories. Now, part 3 charts the actual journey across the lifespan. Jung saw development unfolding in distinct phases, leading us to the 2 halves of life.
Yeah, this is a really useful framework. The first half of life, roughly up to your mid-30s or so, the main focus is external, adaptation,
building a life in the world.
Exactly. Building a strong ego, developing a functional persona, finding your place in society, getting competent, maybe starting a family, achieving some external goals. Success is measured by those outward achievements.
And this isn't wrong, right? It's necessary groundwork.
Totally necessary. You need that solid foundation, that functional ego, before you can really handle the deeper inner work. You need a boat before you can sail the unconscious ocean.
But the risk is getting stuck there, too focused outward.
Well, that one-sided focus on the external world inevitably builds up a huge counterposition in the unconscious. All the unlived life, the parts of you that didn't fit the external adaptation.
Which leads to the turning point.
Yeah.
The second half, often kicked off by the infamous midlife crisis.
Right. And Jung saw this crisis not as a failure or something to avoid, but as a vital, necessary psychological turning point. He actually called it a summons from the self.
A summons.
Yeah. When the goals of the first half, money, status, maybe even relationships as they were structured, either they're achieved and feel empty or they seem clearly unattainable, the ego often hits a wall. A profound sense of meaninglessness can set in. The old way just doesn't work anymore.
It sounds like the ego kind of needs to fail or feel lost to make the turn inward.
Often, yes. That's when the psychic energy, the libido, naturally starts to withdraw from the external world and turn inward. The demand shifts. It's no longer about adapting to society. It's about integrating your inner world. Self-realization. Dialogue with the unconscious.
Which is painful work.
Oh, definitely. Because it means facing all the stuff you pushed away or ignored to succeed in the first half, confronting the shadow, the unlived life.
To give this intense inner transformation some structure, Jung famously looked to alchemy. He saw it as a symbolic map.
Exactly. Not literal gold making, obviously. He saw the alchemical process transmuting base metal, like lead, into gold as a perfect symbolic projection of the psyche's own transformation process.
Turning the old, limited self into the whole, individuated self. The psychic core.
Precisely. And the traditional stages of alchemy gave him a powerful language for the stages of inner work.
Let's walk through them. It starts with the darkness, right? The negrito.
The negrito, or the blackening. This is the necessary first stage, the descent. Chaos, confusion, despair. Psychologically, this is the unavoidable, often brutal confrontation with the shadow.
Really seeing your own darkness.
Your hypocrisy, your repressed anger, your capacity for cruelty or self-deception. It involves the dissolution of the old ego identity, the persona you thought you were. It feels like being lost, stuck, dissolved in darkness, intense suffering.
Wow, that sounds intense, but necessary.
Absolutely necessary. You can't skip it. But if you endure it, if you don't run away, you move into the next phase. Albedo.
Albedo, the whitening. Sounds like clearing.
It is. Purification.
Yeah.
Illumination. After the wrestling match with the shadow, once you've acknowledged that darkness within, there's a dawning clarity. The psyche gets washed clean, in a sense.
What does that look like psychologically?
This stage is often associated with starting to integrate the anima, or animus. You gain a new understanding of your inner world. A more reflective stance emerges. Intuition might start to speak more clearly. The world feels less confusing, less black and white, maybe more transparent.
And the final stage, the goal.
That's the rubedo, or the reddening, the sunrise after the dawn. This represents the final synthesis, the union of conscious and unconscious, inner and outer reality, matter and spirit, in alchemical terms.
The integrated self.
The full realization of the self. The personality has found its gold. It can now live its wholeness, its uniqueness, authentically in the world. It's not about perfection, but about living your complete integrated reality, having found your own deep meaning through the whole transformative process.
Okay, the map and the stages are fascinating, but if you're listening to this for personal development, you need tools. How do you actually do this work? Part 4 is about the practical methods, starting with dream analysis. How did Jung's way differ from Freud's?
Big difference. Jung saw dreams not as disguised wishes hiding something else, but as spontaneous, honest, natural communications from the total psyche, like a nightly self-portrait of your unconscious state.
And they're compensatory, trying to balance the ego's view.
Exactly. They're trying to correct your conscious one-sidedness. So he rejected Freud's method of free association, where you kind of follow tangents away from the dream image.
He felt that led you away from the dream's actual message.
Yeah, he thought it tended to just lead back to the person's known complexes, rather than uncovering the specific compensatory message the dream itself is delivering now.
So if my ego is all work, 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 and I dream of lounging by a pool, The dream isn't hiding some complex wish, it's directly saying you need rest and pleasure.
Pretty much. Psychic self-regulation in action. So, to understand the symbolic language, Jung used amplification.
Instead of free associating away, you stick with the image.
You circle around the dream image, you enrich its meaning, connect it outwards, place it in a larger human context.
How do you do that practically?
2 levels. First, personal amplification. You connect the dream image, that pool, say to your current life. What's going on? Recent events. What does pool mean to you personally? Your memories, feelings about pools.
Okay, that makes sense. But then there's the Jungian twist.
Right. Objective amplification. This is where you connect the image to universal patterns. Mythology, folklore, fairy tales, religious symbols, cultural motifs. What does water symbolize universally? What about gardens or snakes or flying?
Why is that step so helpful? If my dream feels personal, why bring in myths?
Because it's incredibly therapeutic. It does 2 things. 1, it helps decode the image if personal associations aren't enough. 2, and maybe more importantly, it contextualizes your struggle.
How so?
If you dream you're fighting a monster, okay, that's scary. But if you amplify monster fighting and connect it to the universal hero's journey myth cycle, suddenly your personal nightmare isn't just your weird, pathetic little problem.
It's part of a timeless human story.
Exactly. It's your version of an archetypal human struggle. It reduces that feeling of isolation, of pathology. It connects your personal pain to the grand narrative of humanity, giving it depth, meaning, and dignity.
Okay, so dream analysis is about interpreting messages from the unconscious. What about talking back? That's active imagination, right?
Precisely. This is maybe Jung's most distinctive and powerful technique for direct engagement, and it's demanding. It's not just daydreaming or passive fantasizing.
It's disciplined dialogue.
Very disciplined. A conscious process of talking with your inner figures, the complexes, the archetypes personified.
How does it work? Say I have this recurring feeling of dread. How would I use active imagination?
Okay, first step. You focus intently on that psychic content, the dread itself, or maybe an image or figure that pops into your mind associated with it. You get quiet, centered. Second, you allow that mood or image to take shape, to develop. Maybe the dread becomes a dark cloud or a hunched figure in a corner. You let it unfold like an inner drama without consciously directing it. Just observe.
Okay, I'm watching the inner movie.
Then comes the crucial 3rd step.
Yeah.
Your conscious ego has to enter the scene. You don't just watch, you interact authentically.
Talking to the dark cloud.
Yes. Ask it questions. Why are you here? What do you want? Challenge it. Why should I believe what you're telling me? Or maybe, depending on the figure and the energy, you might need to listen respectfully or even negotiate.
So if an inner critic figure says, you're useless, I don't just ignore it, I engage. Why do you say that? What makes you think so?
Exactly. You give these previously autonomous, unconscious bits a voice, a form within consciousness. And ideally, you record the dialogue somehow, write it down, paint it, sculpt it. This process transforms the unconscious. It stops being just this disruptive background noise.
It becomes more like a partner you can actually talk to.
A creative, collaborative partner. The energy that was locked up and causing trouble in the complex gets released, understood, and gradually integrated into your conscious personality. It's powerful stuff.
Both these methods, dreams and active imagination, they seem geared towards the ultimate goal. The synthesis of opposites, which you said is managed by the transcendent function.
Yes, the transcendent function isn't a technique you do, it's the psyche's natural inherent capacity to resolve tension between opposites. It's the engine of growth, constantly seeking a new synthesis, a way forward that transcends the conflict.
But it requires the ego to do something really hard.
Yeah.
Hold the tension. What does that actually feel like or look like?
It feels like struggle, discomfort. It means consciously staying with the conflict between 2 opposing forces without letting your ego just shut one down or get completely swamped by the other.
Can you give an example?
Okay. Let's say your conscious mind, your ego, values career stability, security. That's the rational choice. But you keep having these powerful dreams or feelings pulling you towards a really risky creative passion.
The classic dilemma.
Right. Holding the tension means you don't just dismiss the dream as silly and you don't just quit your job impulsively. You have to consciously hold both values. Acknowledge the validity of stability and the powerful, maybe irrational pull of the passion. You live in that uncomfortable space between them.
Enduring the conflict without picking a side immediately.
Yes. And Jung believed that if the ego can tolerate that tension, that struggle, without collapsing into one side or the other, something new emerges, a third thing.
The synthesis.
A new synthesis, yeah. Often it comes as a living symbol, a new insight, or a creative solution that wasn't visible before. In the Trier example, maybe the synthesis is finding a way to restructure your life, to seriously pursue the passion while maintaining necessary stability. A completely new path emerges, offering a higher level of consciousness than either of the original opposites alone.
That tension holding seems especially relevant in relationships, where projection and integration come into play so strongly.
Hugely relevant. Projection, as we touched on, is seeing our own unacknowledged inner stuffed shadow, Anima and Animus, in other people. We project our disowned darkness onto people we dislike or fear. We project our soul image onto people we fall in love with or idealize.
And in therapy, this is called transference.
Exactly. The patient unconsciously transfers these powerful, often parental or archetypal images onto the therapist. The therapy room becomes this contained space, a temenos, where these projections can happen safely.
The therapist ends up carrying the projection, the wise old man, the critical mother, whatever it is.
And the therapist's job is partly to hold that projection without reacting personally and help the patient gradually see that the qualities they're seeing in the therapist are actually parts of themselves.
So the goal is to take the projections back.
Withdrawing the projections, that's the core of so much therapeutic work. Reclaiming the shadow traits you despise in your enemy. Reclaiming the power or wisdom you project onto your guru or lover, owning it as yours.
That sounds like a profound act of integration.
It is. It's quintessential psychological integration. You stop needing the external world to carry these parts of you. You start to become whole within yourself.
Jung's thinking always seemed to expand beyond the individual, didn't it? Into culture, history, meaning itself. Part V is about this bigger dimension, the psyche's universal language.
Yes, the language of the collective unconscious is symbolism. It speaks in images and stories. If archetypes are the underlying structure, then mythology is their narrative expression.
Myths aren't just old stories.
No, not primitive science or literal history. Jung saw myths as the collective dreams of humanity. They dramatize the timeless psychological truths, the inner conflicts and transformations that every human being potentially goes through.
And the most universal story map for that inner journey is the hero's journey.
It's the blueprint for individuation laid out in narrative form. You see it everywhere, from ancient myths to modern movies.
Describe the pattern.
The ego, the hero, has to leave the ordinary world, the known comfort zone, descend into the unconscious, the underworld, the forest, confront the shadow, the dragon, the monster, the villain, encounter the inner guide, often the anima or animus figure, and eventually, hopefully, return with some kind of treasure, wisdom, integration, the elixir, which renews not just the hero, but the whole community, the conscious world. It's the cycle of psychic death and rebirth.
And if the hero's journey is the map, you mentioned the mandala is like the anchor.
The mandala, that circular image with a center, is the spontaneous, universal symbol of the self, of wholeness, of totality. Jung was struck by how often patients, especially during times of intense chaos or fragmentation, would spontaneously draw or dream of these centering images.
Without knowing what a mandala was.
Often, yes. It was like the self, deep within the psyche, was asserting its own inherent drive towards order and integration amidst the turmoil, providing a psychic anchor, a focal point pointing towards eventual wholeness.
Okay, let's zoom out and look at our modern world through this Jungian lens. He was pretty critical of modern rationalism, wasn't he? He saw it causing a kind of spiritual crisis.
He really did. He argued that the rise of the purely scientific, rational worldview, while achieving amazing things, had also stripped the world of its symbolic dimension, its magic, its enchantment.
We disenchanted the world.
We made everything literal, factual, material, and in doing so, we cut ourselves off from the deep, instinctual, mythical roots of the psyche. This created a spiritual vacuum, an absence of meaning. And that emptiness, Jung believed, is a major driver of modern neurosis, anxiety, depression, addiction, that pervasive feeling of alienation even when materially successful.
So what's the antidote to modern meaninglessness, according to Jung?
The antidote wasn't to reject reason, but to reconnect with the symbolic dimension, to start living the symbolic life.
What does that mean in practice?
It means consciously cultivating the capacity to experience life not just as literal facts, but symbolically, meaningfully, paying attention to the other side, to dreams, to synchronistic events, to fantasies, to the emotional resonance of things, seeing the archetypal patterns playing out in your own life and in the world, responding to the messages from the unconscious.
And he didn't just apply this to individuals. He looked at the collective shadow, too, the dark side of whole societies.
Yes. Just like an individual has a shadow, So does a group, a culture, a nation. It's made up of all the undesirable, uncomfortable, inhumane qualities that the collective refuses to acknowledge about itself.
And because it's unacknowledged,
It gets projected, viciously, onto an external other. The enemy nation, a minority group, the political opponents. That group becomes the scapegoat, carrying all the darkness the society won't own. This projection, Jung argued, is a psychological root of prejudice, fanaticism, war.
you can see that playing out throughout history. He famously analyzed the rise of Nazism this way, didn't he?
He did. He saw it as a terrifying example of a collective being possessed by repressed, archaic archetypes, forces of chaos, violence, tribalism that had been brutally suppressed by the preceding hyper-rational, seemingly civilized era. The failure to integrate the personal shadow makes you vulnerable to participating in the collective shadow.
Which brings us to some really fascinating, maybe controversial applications of his ideas, like his take on UFOs as a modern myth.
Right. It's important to understand, Jung wasn't trying to prove or disprove if UFOs were physical spacecraft. He was interested in their psychological significance. Why did this image, round, luminous objects in the sky, grip the collective imagination so powerfully, especially in the mid-20th century?
What was his interpretation?
He saw it happening in an age of massive anxiety. The Cold War, threat of nuclear annihilation, the decline of traditional religious symbols that used to provide order and meaning. The collective psyche was fragmented, terrified.
And the round flying saucer?
Yeah.
It's like a mandala.
Exactly. A technological mandala spontaneously projected onto the heavens. It was a compensation, a powerful symbol of the self-archetype representing wholeness, order, transcendence appearing in a technological guise that fit the era.
So the belief in advanced aliens coming to save us.
Is like a modern, secularized savior myth. It diagnoses the spiritual void, the collective yearning for a unifying, ordering principle for salvation from above, because the traditional symbols had lost their power for many. It's a symptom of our collective psychological state.
Okay, if UFOs were a mid-century projection, diagnosing that need for order and transcendence, what about today? What are the modern myths or projections diagnosing our collective anxieties? You mentioned AI, crypto.
Yeah, if we apply that same Jungian lens today, well, look at artificial intelligence. The hopes and fears around it are immense, almost religious.
I saw.
AI embodies these powerful archetypes. The golem, maybe Prometheus, the potential creation of a mind that could save us, solve climate change, cure disease, offer immortality, but also destroy us, replace us. It clearly diagnoses our deep collective anxiety about our own human limitations, our irrationality, our mortality, and maybe a yearning for a purely rational, godlike intelligence to fix the messes we've made.
And the intense energy around cryptocurrencies. Blockchain.
That phenomenon, especially the almost messianic belief in decentralized systems, it speaks volumes about a deep collective distrust of existing power structures. Banks, governments.
It's a rebellion myth.
It feels like a compensatory myth, yeah. Projecting the hero or rebel archetype onto technology, promising freedom, autonomy, perfect mathematical order, the code, as an escape from the perceived chaos, corruption, and control of the old system. The language used around it is often intensely symbolic, talking about liberation, new paradigms. It taps into very deep archetypal longings.
So, faced with all this modern meaninglessness, collective projection, the path back is personal, living that symbolic life.
That's the antidote Jung proposed. It's a conscious commitment, cultivating your ability to see beyond the literal, to experience the symbolic resonance in your life, paying attention to dreams, synchronicities, the whispers from your own unconscious, and responding to them, engaging with them.
It's about integrating the universal patterns into your specific life.
Exactly. The ultimate goal isn't just to understand myths intellectually, it's to consciously live out your own unique personal myth. Finding how those universal archetypal dramas are playing out in the concrete reality of your job, your relationships, your challenges.
Being the author of your own story, but aware of the deep structures informing it.
Yes. That conscious act of living authentically in dialogue with the archetypal depths of the psyche, that's what creates a meaningful existence. That's what fills the spiritual void that modern life can leave.
Wow. We have covered a huge amount of ground today. A real deep dive into Jung's architecture of wholeness, from the ego all the way to the libido. For you listening, seeking that personal development path, let's try and boil this down. 4 core takeaways from this massive system.
Okay. First, and maybe most important, remember the goal is wholeness, individuation. It's about becoming complete, integrating all of yourself, shadow included. It's not about achieving some kind of external, socially defined perfection or persona-driven success.
Right, completeness, not perfection. Second takeaway.
Your psychic energy is fluid and purposeful. That law of compensation means your unconscious isn't your enemy. It's constantly trying to communicate to balance you. Dreams, moods, symptoms, they're delivering crucial information. Pay attention. It's your partner in growth.
Got it. Third.
Understanding your psychological type, your dominant attitude and function is like having a diagnostic tool. It immediately points you towards your inferior function. That's your blind spot, your weak point, but also where your greatest potential for growth and your shadow integration lies. Working on that inferior function is practical, targeted inner work.
Makes sense. Know your strength to find your necessary area of development. And the final takeaway.
You have concrete tools for engagement. Don't just think about this stuff. Use dream analysis with amplification to understand the messages. And crucially, commit to the discipline of active imagination. Have those dialogues with your inner figures. Transform those autonomous complexes from puppet masters into partners.
Okay, so individuation, purposeful energy type dynamics, and active engagement.
And if we zoom back out one last time, connecting the personal to the collective, Jung was clear. Integrating your personal shadow is hard enough. But integrating the collective shadow is the most urgent psychological task facing humanity.
We talked about UFOs, AI, crypto as modern projections, diagnosing deep collective needs for order, for truth, for freedom from old structures, maybe for transcendence.
Which leads to the final provocative thought for you. Take a look around. What current collective obsessions, fears, fantasies, or even crises might be diagnosing our society's deepest unacknowledged needs right now? And more importantly, after doing your own difficult inner work, confronting your own shadow, integrating your own potentials, what unique part of your psyche, your personal myth brought to life, is needed to help address that collective need out there in the world?
It really frames the personal journey as something with ripple effects.
Absolutely. Jung believed the personal journey towards wholeness isn't self-indulgent navel-gazing. It's a vital contribution. The psychological health of the collective depends, ultimately, on the integration achieved by its individuals.
Definitely food for thought. Thank you for joining us on this very deep dive into Jung's map of the self.
A pleasure. It's rich territory.
We'll see you next time.